We face several types of audits in our career. Many audits are for quality. It may be as per the global standards, say ISO or AS9100. Then it becomes the system audit, or it may be a process audit or a product audit. Many trained auditors have a conception or an idea that audit is all about going to the auditee's place and tearing them apart, finding as many non-conformances as possible. This is not the correct professional approach of auditing. Audit is meant for confirming the extent to which the auditing department fulfills the requirements of the certified standard. In the process, auditor may find one or two gaps or non-conformances which the auditor will note down for corrective actions to be taken. Also have seen many young auditors who, after just getting qualified, go for the audit, do well in all other areas, but as soon as they go to the site to conduct the audit, they suddenly see a memory fade and are not able to progress without hand-holding by a senior auditor like me. Seeing these scenarios, I have brought up this presentation to bring out 4-step approach the auditor should follow to do the on-site audit, the knowledge of which will help the auditees also to do well and be more prepared to face the audit. Hi, this is Jagdish Kumar, Lead Auditor, ISO 9001, Internal Auditor, AS9100, MBB, and Certified Quality Professional from ASQ doing this presentation for you. As you conduct the audit at site, step 1, out of 4 steps, the first step, verify process implementation versus planned arrangements. This is the terminology used in the standards, which immediately may not give any meaning to the reader. The meaning goes like this. How a process will be executed is written in detail either in the standard operating procedure or in the quality manual of the organization, fulfilling all the requirements of the global standards like ISO or aerospace standard AS. Whatever has been written in the document becomes a planned arrangement. Now what they execute or implement should fully comply with the planned arrangement. This verification has to be done by the auditor as a first step. Now, how does the auditor do the verification? Before coming to the site or as he reached the site, he would have gone through the documents, would have registered the key points. Now he would observe the process to see whether these key points are really being covered or addressed as the process is actually done or not. Now, there are some key points to remember as step 1 is done. First, verify extent of conformance through process observation. So auditor should not immediately go to the area and start disturbing people. He should start observing the process being done or allow the operator to continue with these process actions. After the process is completed to the extent that auditor wanted to see, now he can take the interview of that particular operator, discuss with him to clarify some points, review whatever records were generated as evidence of process being carried out correctly, and see whether they are fulfilling the requirements as planned, as stated in the SOP or in the manual. Continuing, auditor has to check how process monitoring. Periodically, a process has to be monitored when it is a long process like a duration of 4 hours, 5 hours, 8 hours, or in process industries like paint industry, ongoing for months and months together. The process has to be monitored to see that things are within control, and monitoring is a periodic continuous activity. Now, as we do the monitoring, we do the measurement, and these measured data should be analyzed to see whether something inadvertently has gone out of control or everything has remained within control or not. Those who are familiar with ISO, please remember these three words: monitoring, measurement, and analysis. These are very, very important for process control. Next, check if the results indicate process effectiveness or ineffectiveness. The auditor has to see what has been the output and what has been the outcome from the process, whether it is meeting the expectation or not. Expectation of the customer, expectation of the next stage as customer, or expectation from the process as written down in the say test procedures, inspection procedures, engineering drawings, and so on. This has to be verified by the auditor. Next, the auditor has to check if the results means output or outcome from the process which he is auditing at the site relate to the quality policy. The quality policy talks about customer satisfaction, whether the product that has rolled out from this particular process being audited at site provides product which is going to ensure customer satisfaction, which is going to be purchased and appreciated by the customer or not. Point number 2 here, the result should also fulfill the objectives. Objective here for the manufacturing process is 100% say first time pass. If it is too critical a process, maybe 95% first time pass. Whatever has been set as objective to fulfill, whether that has been met or not, in terms of throughput means speed of manufacture, in terms of no rework, in terms of 100% or whatever percent set for first time pass or not. Also, point number 3 here, check if the results relate to requirements for the products and services, because the requirements for the products and services are stated by designers or by the customers, whether the output from this process fulfilling all these requirements of the products and services or not. If not, process becomes ineffective. If it is fulfilled, the process is effective. Also, as the auditor does the on-site audit of processes, he should see how the data or results of monitoring in terms of recorded data through measurement and analysis are used for further analysis and quality improvement. So the MMA, I told you, monitoring, measurement, and analysis. So as you monitor, you do the measurement, you record, and then you analyze whether the process is under control or needs improvement, variation can be reduced or not. These analyses should be used for further quality improvement. Whether it is done if required or not is also the point to be checked by the auditor. Now, having understood step number 1 out of 4 steps, let us get into step number 2. Organize artifacts. As the audit is conducted by the auditor as per step 1, he would have found out variations from the planned activity from the documents versus whatever the real operations are being carried out by the operators. Now, these variations should be captured in adequate numbers. These are called as the objective evidences or artifacts with the requisite details, so that the auditor can substantiate his non-conforming statement to see that this particular non-conformance existed in the audit area. Having gathered adequate artifact or objective evidence to substantiate the non-conformance report the particular auditor is generating, he should also be able to assign particular clause of the global standards, say ISO or AS, as per which this non-conformance is observed. Now, in this process, auditor faces the dilemma that whatever non-conformance or observation he has done, it will fit into 2 or 3 clauses under the global standard. In such a case, the auditor should use all his knowledge and judgment to assign one most appropriate clause for the NC, and under that clause, he should book the non-conformance for that particular audit area. So we understood now, observe, get the variations, get the artifacts, now organize the artifacts to be adequate to declare particular non-conformance as a non-conformance and assign the most appropriate clause from the standard, so that the audit report is complete in all respects. Having done and entered in the audit report, now the step number 3 has to be done by the auditor. That is analyze and categorize findings, because whatever findings he has reported now or recorded may fit into 3 categories based on the severity, namely major non-conformance. If a major non-conformance is observed, it amounts to certification being withdrawn or suspended. It is considered as system failure. It is expected that under no circumstance in any audit a major non-conformance should be observed. If so, it is a serious event leading to certification being withdrawn or suspended. Less catastrophic is minor non-conformance. This can be slightly in larger numbers also to begin with, but 2 minor non-conformances under the same clause will lead to that non-conform being declared as a major non-conformance. The third category, which is not very severe but will give input for the audit to improve, is the category called as scope for improvement. Here also the auditor mentions the clause number, then he writes what has been observed, and he says this is the scope for improvement and can be improved. Now comes the last step, that is step number 4, which is recording and reporting. All the observations have been compiled, adequate artifacts or objective evidences have been gathered, appropriate clause number has been assigned, the observation has been classified into any one of the 3 categories, namely major NC, minor NC, or scope for improvement. Now these findings along with the details we discussed have to be brought into a non-conformance report to be presented during the closing meeting, as well as to be forwarded to the certifying body by the auditor. Result of on-site activity has to be reported for improvement action. So reporting is a mandatory action. The result may be positive or negative. If any good thing is found, that has to be also declared. If a gap is found or negative, also has to be reported. This please keep in mind as auditors, and this is what you can expect as auditees also. Non-conformances can arise from 3 reasons. This has been a common confusion where I had to handhold many young auditors, as well as do a lot of convincing to the audit departments. If you know the points I am covering now, it would clearly give you the input as to why this particular observation was a non-conformance and what are the sources for non-conformance. First source out of 3. Standards requirement. Here standard means it may be ISO or AS9100 standard. The requirements are there mentioned in the different clauses of the ISO or AS standard. Now this has not been addressed in the organization's quality system manual. Organizations write quality system manual, which is a document prepared for customizing the global standard into the company's requirement, or adapting the global standard, whatever the contents are there in the global standard, into the organization through systems manual. Now while global standards requirements have been transferred or customized into quality system manual, they would have omitted that requirement by oversight, or maybe for the reason that they could not consider that as the point they could confirm as they do the implementation, or whatever reason. In such a case, there is a requirement in the global standard, it is not transferred to the company's manual and then not practiced. This is one source of non-conformance. Second source is standards requirements have been clearly transferred to the systems manual and it was supposed to be implemented. But at the implementation stage, there was a gap or there was a failure. In such a case, what happens? The samples selected do not provide the evidence of compliance to that global standard requirement, though it was mentioned in the company's quality system manual or document. Then this is the second source of non-conformance. The third source and the last source for non-conformance would be system is in place, means work is happening as per the manual, and samples also are compliant to the manual, but the system is not effective because as the contents of the global standard was transferred to systems manual, it was not omitted as in case of point number 1. Here it was diluted, for example. Then it is not effective enough. In such a case also non-conformances arise. So 3 reasons. 1, the global standard requirement not transferred to company's manual or document and not implemented therefore. Second, the standards requirement has been transferred to the quality manual of the organization, which the operator was supposed to follow, but he did not follow, and it was not evidenced in the product that the requirement of the standard was met. Third reason, that manual had the contents of the requirements from the global standard. It was implemented also, but as the contents of the global standard were transferred to the manual, it was diluted a bit. It was not or adopted effectively. These are the 3 reasons to remember, which will be the last step in the auditing process, step number 4. So we understood now: observe, get the artifacts, interview, then compile the artifacts. Step number 1. Step number 2, the artifacts have to be such that they are adequate to declare a particular finding as a non-conformance, as well as in step number 2, the auditor should be able to assign the most appropriate clause number for that non-conformance. Coming to step number 3, now the auditor will categorize the findings into 3 categories: major non-conformance, minor non-conformance, or scope for improvement. Major non-conformance will lead to suspension of the certification, serious system failure. Minor non-conformance will lead to corrective action being mandated. If 2 minor NCC happen under 1 clause, then it is considered as a major non-conformance. Then scope for improvement is for the organization to adopt and then come out with improvement actions to better its position on implementation of global standards, which will enhance the performance of the company. Step number 4 is all these findings categorization will lead to reporting the non-conformance in a particular standard template, and here the non-conformances are anyway is that the improvement actions happen without a failure. Coming to non-conformances, there are 3 reasons or causes of non-conformance. 1, the global standards requirements are totally transferred to the quality manual, but somewhere some requirements got omitted, and now the requirements of the standard was not followed. The second reason is requirements have been addressed in the quality manual as per the global standard requirement. However, at the implementation side, there was a slack. The third reason is global standard requirement was transferred to the company's manual and implemented in full. But however, as the global standard requirement was transferred to the quality manual, there was a dilution and now it was not effective. Having understood the 4 steps of on-site audit and the sources, the 3 sources of non-conformance, I now take this opportunity to request you to please subscribe to my channel if you have not subscribed. Number of subscriptions play a major role in our presentations being visible to you in YouTube, and it will be a motivator for us. And I take this opportunity to thank you for all your support. Thank you.